Hello and welcome to another indie book review. I really hope people aren't getting bored of these because we've still got a ton more to go, but I'm really excited to talk about this one. Now, this is one of the books that I was offered in kind of there was like this 3-day weekend almost where I was getting like 2 emails a day or something crazy like that, or 2 Twitter DMs a day. And so I was just saying yes to a lot of them, anything that sounded even remotely good, because I was so happy to be getting all of these messages. And so I said yes to this one more on the basis of the author than of the premise, because the author, Summer Kiska, has been a Twitter mutual of mine for a little bit now, and I really liked her work on there, and she's been very active interacting with me, so I almost automatically said yes. And then when I got the book, I was a little bit nervous, and I'll explain why in a second. So this is Only Words by Summer Kiska. This is an NA fantasy. I originally thought it was YA, and as you know, it's not usually my bag most of the time. However, this one, when I finally decided to open it and make it the next one I would review, I was so glad I did. Now this is book 1 of the Shane, I believe it is Ashby? Yes, Shane Ashby trilogy, in which a young woman in her early 20s is cursed to only speak 300 more words before she is mute forever. Now, this is tricky because she is a witch, a Celtic witch, and her magic requires speaking to work. So in limiting her to 300 words, she basically is limiting magic for the rest of her life until she is fully mute and can use it no more. Now, right out of the gate, I was intrigued by that premise, why she was cursed and all of that. There's also talk about her warlock ex-boyfriend and his sister coming back, but not for a happy reunion, maybe with some more lethal murderous intent. And it all sounded more intriguing the more I got into it. And what I really loved is the reveal of the witch that cursed her and how she got cursed in the first place. Now, if you've watched my channel a little bit, you know that one of my pet peeves is when the synopsis reveals something that is revealed late in the book. So if a reveal is given in the book at like page 150, that should not be in the synopsis. But in this case, the reveal of who the witch that cursed her is and the setup around the curse happens within like the first 30 pages, which usually would be for me, would be fine to reveal in a synopsis. This is the first 30 pages. But the reveal is done so nicely and so surprising that I really liked the punch of it. And it would have been totally excusable to have had that reveal in the synopsis. Again, it's in the first 30 pages. So the fact that the little reveal was put right there, it put forward to me that Summer had put a lot of thought into even the marketing. I mean, the cover is lovely, and I love it. There's even this little newt on the back. It confused me to no end, and you don't realize why it's on there until you read the book, and then it makes total sense. And all of those little aspects, and the even down to the crows in the sky, like the packaging on this book was so well done to represent the story within it, and you don't always get that with indie books, so I really, really appreciated that. The other thing I loved was the magic system. If you know me, you know I love a harder magic system, some rules, some structure, and the magic of this world definitely has it. So each witch or warlock is the descendant of a specific clan or pantheon, and all of their magic comes through the gods of that pantheon. Now, Shane is from Ireland. Her given name is actually Shannon, and she is a descendant of that line, so those are the gods that she prays to for her magic, essentially. There's also a system where multiple births are more common in magic users, and they tend to be more powerful. So triplets or twins are more powerful than single births, triplets are more powerful than twins, and it's sort of basically how many people you shared the womb with multiplies your magic. And so I loved that aspect. I love that there were rules. There's a new warlock who doesn't really know magic at all, who comes into the picture, and his name is Jeremy. He's my favorite. He's such a little soft boy, and I love him. But he knows basically nothing, and so it's through him that we learn the aspects of making potions and candle magic and energy spending and all of that sort of thing, which is nice because in a lot of cases, books tend to make the protagonist that person. They tend to make the protagonist the one that learns everything. But in this case, the protagonist was actually the one teaching everything, which made her look so knowledgeable and competent, even when she had this curse that kept her from using magic herself. The relationship between her and Jeremy as it develops, because, I mean, if I tell you a nice soft boy comes and she's a young single woman, and I'll let you figure out what happens from there. It was lovely. Jeremy in general was just probably my favorite character because he was just a soft boy, a cinnamon roll, and he had social anxiety and was overly polite because he didn't know what else to do, and he felt clumsy because he was in his 20s and didn't know magic, which is unheard of for someone of their kind. And he is fighting for his father's affection, more or less, and terrified that he's going to disappoint him. And he was so open and vulnerable and just everything I love in a good soft boy. But the characters especially were very lit up and were very complex and were very heartbreaking. And speaking of heartbreak, okay, this was probably the most emotionally touching part of the story for me. Now, Shane is one of triplets, which makes her very powerful. However, when she was young, about 13, her parents died in a car wreck. Now, the way the world treats magic users is kind of hypocritical in that they want their help in solving, you know, weather problems or health ailments and that kind of thing. But they also don't want to treat them as holy people. So as a result, there's a lot of civil laws in place to essentially strip them of their rights. And one of those is that magically gifted kids cannot go into foster care. If their parents die, it's basically on other members of the community who also cannot be foster parents to take them in. Now, their brother's sister, who tried to keep all three of them, but she couldn't afford to, so she kept Shane and sent the other two away to live with family in Ireland. And you find out that family in Ireland probably wasn't that great. And so as a result, Shane has grown very distant from her sisters to the extent that they basically hate and resent her and everything she stands for. And she still loves them despite that, because they did spend the first 13 years of their lives together, and she grieves the entire book the loss of these girls that were once so close to her that 10 years later seem like totally different people. Now, I am very close to my sisters, and I have two of them. We're not triplets, but we definitely still feel like a bond of three. So for me, that aspect of having sisters that you love that hate you and that maybe want you dead, at least one, that hit me in the heart so hard, and was probably the thing that stuck with me the most, more than anything else, is the idea that I can't imagine if one of my sisters felt the way that one of the triplets felt about Shane in this book. And that, like, ooh, I'm going to get emotional thinking about it now, but that was probably the biggest thing, where despite all of the magic and the curses and the learning about it, and there are some interactions with gods, more or less, not high-key interactions, low-key interactions, but interactions with gods. That's what stuck with me, was the characterizations and Shane's struggle, that how is she supposed to fight these people, these two that want to kill her, but she doesn't want to kill them, but they're both magic users, and she's cursed, so she's already at a disadvantage, but she can't bring herself to actually hurt them. And the emotional dynamic of her inner turmoil came through so clearly. It was so heartbreaking. As for the finale, extra heartbreaking. It's one of those that it's actually one of my favorite kinds of endings. I don't like endings that are truly happy or truly tragic, but are bittersweet, where yes, a lot is gained, but a lot has also been lost. And is this actually a victory if she still is grieving over this thing, or she still lost this thing? That aspect was beautiful. The one thing is, I don't know how this is going to be made into a trilogy. And I would not know that it was a trilogy if it didn't say Book 1 Shane Aspie Trilogy on the cover, because while there are a couple things up in the air and a couple things you could pick up, they're mostly character side stories or character development on the side than a big plot point coming. Like the big plot point is more or less resolved at the end of this book. So I'm wondering what new conflict will come up in the next one. I think if I had to pick what I would want to see, I think I would want to see more with the essentially oppression of magic people, how their magic is still being used to benefit normies, or I don't think they have a name for them, I just think they call them people. How they're used to benefit the average populace, but the average populace won't even grant them basic human rights as a result of it. So I think that aspect has a place. I think I could see who a new villain would be if you were to pick one. But all in all, the ending of the book, for all that it is the first of a trilogy, doesn't feel first of a trilogy-y for me. And that could be a good thing. I think a lot of trilogies can kind of fall into the whole, you know, one act, second act, third act, and you can kind of guess what happens, and how the second book tends to be a kind of throwaway book where it's really just a point A to point B book. And so maybe the fact that this doesn't feel like the first in a trilogy, the second won't feel like a second, and it won't fall into the same pitfalls that sequels and trilogies usually do. That's really the only drawback I can think of, is this feels like a complete standalone. You could read this as a standalone and get the gist. But I probably will continue because I loved it. And there are some side characters. I'm hoping that there are some side characters that will come into the story. There are some characters that are only discussed in this book that I'd love to see come in. But in general, I loved this. Not even for the magic system, literally just for the human aspects, the emotional aspects, the heartbreak aspects, the internal struggles and turmoils. That was probably my favorite. I am so glad that I picked this up. I am still probably going to be a little bit more cautious accepting books moving forward. However, I will say that basing what I want to read based on a person's online persona seems to be working, because I've done it a couple times now, and I really tend to like what I read. So, and I really tend to like them on Twitter. So maybe there is an idea of getting a feel for the author's personality online can get you a feel for their writing style in their books. I don't know. I'll have to read a little bit more from my Twitter mutuals to get a feel for it. And luckily, I have more coming. I have so many more books. Since I decided to start reading only review books for this month, I've gotten 2 more arcs in the mail, and another one is coming, and I've gotten like 2 more emails offering. So I might have to make this whole summer for reviewing. I really hope you guys like this. But in general, thank you so much for following along with me. I give this book a resounding 5 stars. I know that it seems like I've been loving a lot of the books I've been reading lately, and honest to God, it's just because I genuinely have been, and I'm really nervous that one of the books I read isn't going to be as great, because I feel like after so many awesome reads, and I know the next book I'm reviewing is going to be a 5 stars because I love that one, I'm really nervous for like a 2-star because I'm going to look so horrible, and maybe that author, if they've been following me, is going to feel so bad because they're going to have the 2-star. It's a thing I worry about, but for the most part, for right now, I'm loving my month of reviews. This has been so much fun. I hope you keep following along with me. If you would like to, please subscribe. Comment below what you thought of this book. Would you buy it? Would you want to read the rest of it? And do you think you can tell an author's writing style based on their online persona? Because that's an interesting conversation to have. With nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.